This week on DineDrinkCLE, the podcast.
And Josh, we have some very exciting news from the desk of DineDrinkCLE, the podcast. Yes, the Great Grog Bake Off. It's based on the Great British Bake Off or baking show, if you've seen it.
What is a coconut bar?
So what it is, the cake is essentially like a wedding-style cake. So you're talking about something that's got a little more sponginess to it.
The menu, I give them a lot of credit on this too, because it's not just typical dishes. He's putting his own spin, especially on the accoutrements with each of the dishes. He's going to have a dry-aged pork chop. He's going to have ribeye steak tips. He's going to have a braised lamb shake with...
I'm Josh Duke.
And I'm Alex Darus.
And you're either watching or listening to DineDrinkCLE, the podcast, where each and every week we are joined by Cleveland's best and brightest food experts, insiders, and influencers talking all things food and drink here in the Northeast Ohio area. What are we talking about today, Alex?
Lots of new restaurants. A lot of new restaurants have opened recently in Cleveland. We're going to get a little update on that. We're going to check in with Peter Cherian, talk a little bit about his Classic CLE columns, specifically some pastries that he specifically thinks should get some recognition for their Cleveland-ness. And we're also going to talk about a fun event, including DineDrinkCLE, so stay tuned.
Excited for that one. But first, we got Marc Bona here to talk about a new restaurant coming to the Van Aken district. Welcome.
Hey,
Marc.
guys.
Hi. So Kiln, Doug Katz's latest restaurant. What can you tell us about it?
Well, Doug Katz is clearly one of the most acclaimed restaurateurs in the area. He's done a great job. He owns Amba and Jug, and he used to own, if you know food in this city, you know Fire from Shaker Square. That was an absolutely cult classic in my book. They had, if we can just deviate for 5 seconds.
Yes, do it.
They had an absolutely amazing melt-in-your-mouth, light cinnamon bun that was, oh my gosh, it was artery clogging, butter laden. It was so good, and it would just melt in your mouth.
Well, I
It was
think
delicious.
Doug brought back one or two things
He
from
did.
the
We'll
Fire
be
menu,
getting
so
to that.
maybe
That's
you
true.
could get those back.
But no, our colleague Paris Wolf went out, talked to Doug, took some photos. Really, really neat place. He and his business partner Todd Thompson have opened up Kiln in, which I like that name, by the way, opened it up in the former Sawyer's. Now, this was a restaurant that lasted like for maybe half a cup of coffee before Jonathan Sawyer left town a few years ago. I like the name for a couple reasons. One, it harkens back to Fire, so there's a relationship there. But one thing I didn't know that Paris had reported on was that Doug is a potter. He likes doing it. It's a hobby. So this is perfect. 2-floor restaurant, 25-seat bar. So he's got, I love when bars are a focus, although I still like, in restaurants, I do like the segregated area. I think there should be an area for dining as well as the bar. Looks fantastic. I really think because of his ability, he's very well known. He's acclaimed because he's done a great job. He's very careful about what he does, great reputation. I think this is going to be the hot restaurant of the year. 2 years ago, I would give that tag to Cordelia. Last year, I'd give it to Fahrenheit, which is still a tough ticket to get into. And now I'm going to say Katz's Kiln in Van Aken. Unlike Amba and Jug, he is accepting reservations, and taking it one step further, you can even give your preferred location of where you want to sit.
Oh, that's very cool. And I think I spoke to Todd Thompson recently, and he kind of described it as a French bistro doing American classics. So what can you tell us about like the menu items?
Yeah, the menu, I give them a lot of credit on this too, because it's not just typical dishes. He's putting his own spin, especially on the accoutrements with each of the dishes. He's going to have a dry-aged pork chop. He's going to have ribeye steak tips. He's going to have a braised lamb shake with kohlrabi puree, preserved plums, and a mint garnish. So that to me says, in every bite, you're going to get just a tinge of bitterness and a tinge of sweetness. And I'm sure, knowing Katz and his crew, it's going to be very well balanced. I think that's really neat. I love the fact they're offering popovers instead of bread. You can get bread anywhere. I love when there's different options for bread. I think it should be a diverse offering. Popovers are very different. They're light. They won't fill you up. I think that's a really smart idea. He is bringing back the buttermilk fried chicken livers with a cherry compote from Fire. there. That was very popular. I'm not a huge chicken livers fan myself, but people did seem to like it.
I think it's a test to his cooking ability and kind of culinary perspective that he can make chicken livers a hot menu item.
That's a
that's a
great point, Alex. Yeah, that's very true. And he also follows some standards, some seafood sourcing guidelines, and he's keeping with those as well for the seafood on the menu. So he's taking kind of a sustainable approach with that as well. So this will be really fun. Great location. I mean, Van Aken has done a nice job in the last few years. It's not very big, but they've had some well-chosen places that have gone in there, and of course, some in and outs, but it should be a lot of fun.
And outside of the food situation, what is he doing in the drink space? Is it going to be anything creative or dynamic?
I can talk a little bit about this. I know because when I spoke to Todd at Amba, if you've ever been to Amba in Ohio City, it's very cocktail forward. Kiln is a big wine restaurant for them. They're going to have a lot of different wines, and Todd's really prioritizing like small family producers, very much authentic products that aren't just saying that, like not going through the big kind of mass market corporate wines, seeking out those smaller producers, and kind of going with the food. I know that Doug and the food menu is featuring a lot of local producers and farmers and things like that. And I know Todd featured some local wines from, I know M Cellars for sure, some Lake County wines on the wine list. So definitely a wine lover's place. And now we are going to the Classic CLE Eats corner with Pete Cherian. Hi, Pete.
Hi, friends.
So what have you been writing about lately? Coconut cake, sauerkraut balls, different things.
Well, every week I try and come up with something that's a very unique Cleveland flavor. And so to your point, just in the last month or so, I've tackled coconut bars, which are also called coconut cakes. They have a bunch of different names. I've seen them referred to as Cleveland bars. If you get out towards the West Coast, there are bakers who actually make them because they do it in honor of Cleveland. Sauerkraut balls was another one. Sfogliatella, which are very special and popular Italian pastry. Those were just some of the ones that I've hit most recently.
And kind of with the coconut cakes, I think it's something like you said, I've seen it at the West Side Market. You see it at all the bakeries, but I never really knew it was a Cleveland thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too. I think I never really realized just how Cleveland specific it was until I started to dig in more to it. And there are a couple of different bakeries in town that sort of are vying for the originator's title of that. I'm not going to speak to that necessarily, but I can tell you that it is such a unique thing and so incredibly moist and delicious, but also a little bit messy to eat. It's like you couldn't ask for anything that's just more perfectly Cleveland than that.
So you kind of started painting the picture, but paint it a little bit more clearly. Like, what is a coconut bar?
So what it is, the cake is essentially like a wedding-style cake. So you're talking about something that's got a little more sponginess to it. They cut these into bars, and then what happens?
Is that cake like yellow cake?
I have seen
mystery.
it. I've seen it as white cake and as yellow cake. So, and that just comes from having looked at all the different bakeries that do them. But this cake is so spongy and moist that what they do then is they take it and roll it into a chocolate syrup, which is very different from like frosting. Frosting really kind of stands up and doesn't really get into the cake per se. There's always this sort of delineation between the frosting and the cake. This sort of gives you this space between where like there's your syrup on the outside, but you can feel it like kind of getting into the cake. So it's a very sweet and soft and moist cake. And then what they do is they take the cake and roll it into coconut.
So the coconut's really just on the outside.
It is. It's all on the outside. Now, having said that, I think Larder is the place where I heard that they actually have tweaked the recipe to include, I think, coconut milk in the batter, the cake batter recipe.
It's like a coconut cake.
They kind of reinforce the coconut flavor in the bar to make it a little bit more potent. So
I want that.
They're so good. And I actually got turned on to them way back. I think in one of our previous podcasts, I mentioned that I'm like a nerd for raspberry zingers, which were the old Dolly Madison, now made by Hostess. And somebody said to me when I was really little, you really need to try these coconut bars. They're like a, level up, but you can see where the connection is too.
Level up. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, no, for sure. And where, obviously you said there's a few different places doing it. Like, did you learn anything about where these came from or why they're a Cleveland thing, or one of the bakeries started making them and they all...
It's really interesting. Everybody has a different origination story on it. So what I did was, after writing the column, I sat back and I collected a whole bunch of information. I think I'm going to do a kind of a deeper dive into those in a separate column, because there's some discrepancy as to who originated them, and people do them all just a little bit differently. And they're also a little different from an Australian cake, which also has filling in them too. So I want to sort of figure out how that separation happened and who knows how that all happened. So I feel like I've got like a forensic science experiment to figure out.
You're gonna be like the coconut bar archaeologist.
No, he's going to be the
discoverer.
Cleveland food. Like, they're like, well, no, this is Chef Boyardee is a
historian.
Cleveland thing. Or what's the other thing we
Indiana
said?
Jones, right?
What was the other brand that I was like shocked? Was it Hostess that like had a bunch in Cleveland, or or Little Debbie or whatever? One of them you did was like
Hostess did.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I never you wouldn't know that. but
Yeah.
Pete
And
knows.
on the flip side of that, are these expanding outside of our Northeast Ohio area? Do we see these popping up in other places?
Only where you see Cleveland
so
people,
weird.
set up shop somewhere else. Someone told me in one of the emails that they actually had them in Vegas, of all places, and the baker was from Cleveland and had the recipe from Cleveland, and they actually refer to them as Cleveland bars, which I thought was fascinating. I'm like, all right, let's see if we can get the company to buy me a ticket to Vegas to go sort that out.
Test them out. Yeah.
Test them out.
No, and then also I kind of wanted to talk about the
Sfogliatella.
Sfogliatella.
Okay.
Because I
We
love
practiced
these.
before we started and we still didn't get
I'm
it
not
right. Don't hurt us,
Italian.
please.
I'm sorry. But this I love. This is like I always get at a bakery, the flaky shell with the custard and powdered sugar. What is the Cleveland connection with that? Or is it kind of the same?
It's very similar. I mean, it's something that, made the transition from the homeland here to Cleveland. A lot of, people from Italy and from Sicily coming to Cleveland, sort of being expats from their country and baking them here. And so they really did kind of settle in here and make them. You can get them in other places. I mean, Detroit has them, and there's a couple of other spots in the Midwest where you can kind of find them, but they're not like easy to come by.
So
and it's
weird.
because the layers of pastry and the time that it takes to actually create the pastry layers, it's a very laborious process, and so I don't think a lot of people are really like ready to dive into doing
Sounds
something like
a
that.
good baking project for Josh to tackle this weekend.
I don't think so.
No, they are delicious though, and I love that they, generally speaking, they make them look like seashells. So when they do come out of the oven fully baked, they have this sort of crispy, crunchy outside. They look like a shell, basically like a seashell, and the custard on the inside is just delicious.
It's just funny because, like, okay, now I'm thinking of other things like a snoogle and stuff like that. Like, you could start a bakery of just all of these, like, Cleveland baked goods. Like, we have a lot of different things like that. You know what I mean?
It's true.
What's your favorite?
I love a snoogle. But I don't know. I like these sfogliatelli. I want to say it like a pasta.
I believe it's sfogliatella
Sfogliatelle.
or sfogliatelli.
But anyways, so sauerkraut balls still is a savory dish, but it's kind of still a baked good. Like, kind of, how do you make a sauerkraut ball? And I thought this was a German thing.
Well, it is German to some degree, but I think you can sort of look at, Eastern Europe all across that spread. People have Venn diagrams of their food, and so you can see that there are different people that sort of adopt the flavors and put them together in that same kind of way. Yeah. I mean, ground sausage with breadcrumb and a lot of times various other things like, onions and celery and sauerkraut, obviously all kind of put together. And
fried,
and sometimes then baked after that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of like a sauerkraut donut hole.
You could call it that. I mean,
Josh hates that I called it that.
Somebody would call it that, but there are some baked goods that are actually really wonderful, like pepperoni rolls and sausage rolls that are, savory as opposed to sweet. So yeah, you could definitely go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, now I'm just thinking of I want to start a Cleveland bakery. You could get like the pizza bagel lady there. What else do we have here?
I think this is it's a great
sweet
start.
pierogies.
Okay,
that's kind of a Cleveland thing. Yeah, someone take my idea and run with it.
I like this bright idea from DineDrinkCLE the podcast.
Well, exactly, and Rudy Strudel, I guess, has got those pumpkin cheesecake pierogies. Did you see that those are coming out? Those are just gotta have
Rudy
some of that.
Strudel specifically. I just have to find a way to recreate the recipe. It's probably impossible to do.
It's so good.
But no, I feel like the Classic CLE Eats column is always fun, but it is kind of cool to see these patterns emerging with, wow, Cleveland likes baked goods.
They do. And I like that it's an actionable column too. Like I try not to I get a lot of calls like, hey, you should talk about the Silver Grill. Well, nobody can go to the Silver Grill anymore.
Yeah.
So you need to be thinking about what can somebody read the column and then go and do and enjoy. So that's a big thing. And it's one of the reasons why I brought up Huff Bakeries too in one of the previous columns. Their coconut cake is one of my favorites with the lemon filling on the inside. And, I just had read over the weekend that they were having some problems in terms of their lease and might be moving on to yet another location. So hoping Archie and the gang find their way to a new place. I've reached out to them and hopefully I'll have some reporting to share with you maybe on one of the next podcasts.
Yeah, that would be another one too. Like we do have a lot of desserts that are like
Cleveland loves its baked goods.
For sure. And specifically me.
Okay, so going back into the new restaurants coming, you recently wrote a story about a new pizza bar coming. Talk to us about it.
Yes, La Pecora is a new pizza bar in the Larchmere neighborhood. It is the latest from Juan Vergara's restaurant group, which he owns Ola, Barocco, Amazonia, and now La Pecora. And it's kind of cool because I've talked about Amazonia a lot on here because I love it, but to enter it, you go through Ola Tacos and it's not a speakeasy, but a hidden entrance. And La Pecora, you enter through the Barocco on Larchmere that recently reopened. It's a very intimate Neapolitan style pizzeria, huge focus on a lot of different wines, but they still have some fun cocktails. Gabby Swafford is the beverage director over there, and she has a caprese salad cocktail that literally has like sun-dried tomato infused Campari, and it's crazy. But she would say she went simple with the cocktail list. But their pizza, it's Bar Amazonia. They do a lot of they started doing the Neapolitan style pizza. One spent some time in Italy working at a pizzeria to learn how to do it, and now he's just like obsessed with it. So at La Pecora, it's a 72-hour fermented dough. They're going to have a lot of different pizza toppings, some of them more upscale, like a pear and pistachio or with a truffle paste on it. And then they have like also just fun pizzas, like one with French fries and Colombian chorizo on it.
That is really good. I always love these loaded sort of menu items. And that
I
sounds
want
right up there.
that pizza so bad. I've literally not stopped thinking about it, but it's just really cool. And honestly, the way that Juan approaches like opening restaurants is very tailoring them to the neighborhood. So yes, there's a Barocco in Lakewood and in Westlake and in Larchmere, but they're all different. And the one in Larchmere is very like loungy, kind of that. And La Pecora is really like a love letter to the neighborhood. So the building used to be owned, and they would rent the half side out to Barocco. And then it was owned by a woman who owned the Dancing Sheep in town. And it was kind of arts, crafts, makers, local store that was really important to the neighborhood. And Juan has so much, this woman passed away, the owner, last year, and he has a lot of like love for her helping him start out, like being his landlord. And so the restaurant is really in honor of her. Like she had this awesome old school neon sign of 3 dancing sheep, and Juan kept that there. La Pecora means the sheep in Italian, and pecorino cheese, which is actually a sheep's cheese. They're gonna shave it on every pizza. So kind of trying to bring that vibe in of like, there is history in this building. We're not just coming in and totally bring something new. Like, we get what this neighborhood is.
Yeah, I love that because when you go down, especially if you're just sitting at will this have a bar area?
Yes,
area?
it has.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about 50 seats, a little intimate bar area.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, well, when you're at the bar and you're just sort of like, enjoying your time, a lot of times you do have conversations with the bartender, and a lot of the time some of the history of where this place came from comes out. So kind of neat to see that'll be kind of carried through, and a lot of people learn about it that way.
It was really cute. Juan was showing me through the restaurant, and he opened a storage door, and I wish I could remember the woman's name, but it's in the story. The owner, the old owner of the Dancing Sheep, she has like all these lines of the neighborhood kids, and she would measure their heights in the door, and it goes back to like 2000 or 90s and stuff. It's just crazy. Like, and there's a great mezzanine. It's just a really, really cool neighborhood spot. They have an insane pizza oven. You see it from the bar, like it's very legit. So
yeah, and you said it is attached to Barocco, but does it have its own interest at all? Like
no, they have front doors. They might open when the weather's like nicer,
Gotcha.
but no, now they want you to like enter through Barocco. It's no reservations at La Pecora, but they have reservations at Barocco. You could go to one while you wait for the other. And they're also going to be open super late. So Barocco is open lunch and dinner. La Pecora is going to be open dinner till like super late night, which in that neighborhood, we're just kind of driving around and stuff. It's like there's really not a lot of late night food options, but I think it'll be a big asset. And kind of the Larchmere neighborhood is getting really cool with food because we have Poppy over there, which we talked about the closing of Salt in Lakewood. That's like their headquarters. We have Batiki is a very cool Brazilian restaurant. It's like very cool stuff in that neighborhood, and I think this very niche specialty pizza bar like totally fits in.
Yeah, and I wonder if just having sort of Barocco right there and attached, you're gonna have shared resources, same employees able to like jump back and forth when there's busy times and stuff. So that's probably a huge benefit for them on at least like a strategic standpoint.
Yeah. For sure. And kind of outside on the other side of town or in the middle of downtown, our colleague Paris Wolf recently wrote a story about Flight Social. It went into the former chocolate bar space next to the arcade downtown, and it's kind of a bar, live entertainment venue, lots of live music, but very unique menu. So it's global inspired. They have a little bit of everything, but they have, as the name suggests, a lot of food flights. So they do kind of global inspired food flights. So there's like an American food flight, a European, Asian, Latin, and they kind of have all these different things. So they still have a regular menu of like appetizers, entrees, salads, soup, whatever. But these food flights are really cool because like I think the European one, it had like Greek spanakopita, Spanish croquettes, German soft pretzels, like a little bit of it. It's just a cool concept with this whole flight thing.
Yeah.
And they're going to do drink flights too.
Yeah, I checked out their menu. Love it. Love it. I loved how not only is there food from different places, but it all just sounds so good. Like one thing that stood out to me on their menu was this jerk chicken sandwich. I can't wait to try that. I'm definitely going to go there just for that. But in terms of the flights, I think it would be cool if they had like a taste of the world sort of flight for the foods, like where you get something from each of these
all
different
four
places.
flights.
Yes, you could do that too.
Like, you know, when you like a chef's tasting menu
Yes,
at a restaurant,
yeah.
but you get all the flights.
Yes.
That is a good idea. Well, that would be just a fun party.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you go with a group of people, everybody gets a different flight, then suddenly you can just taste everything. And I just love that
This
concept.
feels like the like restaurant embodiment of that TikTok trend where they have a board party, you know, and everyone brings a different board. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, and we've seen it at other restaurants. There's a lot of restaurants actually in Northeast Ohio that weirdly do like soup flights. But there's a lot of different food flights. I think people like the idea of a flight. Sounds like a little bit of everything. And it's just cool to see a restaurant like totally jump on that concept full force.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like a very casual, relaxed environment, sort of trendy music. Love that. That's up my alley. So that's pretty nice too.
Yeah, near East 4th, near Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and everything. Definitely in the center at all. And I know people were really sad to see Chocolate Bar go. It seemed like a popular kind of before Playhouse Square or something, get a drink. But it almost seems like this, which I think the Chocolate Bar concept was very cool, but this might be a little bit more flexible, like more reasons to go there than just kind of get a chocolate martini or dessert or something.
And are they doing any like fun flight options for drinks?
I think they are. I don't think they've released the cocktail flights yet, but they're going to. But they do have a dessert flight that's different. Mochi ice creams.
Okay.
So, and I think I saw churros on the dessert menu. It just seems like a good concept for the area too, of like downtown, fun, vibrant, but still casual kind of situation. So
yeah.
And Josh, we have some very exciting news from the desk of DineDrinkCLE, the podcast. What is going on November 19th?
Oh, well, me and you, I think, are going to be part of a pretty nice tradition of the Grog Shop hosting a bake-off. And we're going to be the host. So I'm super excited for that. Not done something like that before. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes, the Great Grog Bake Off. It's based on the Great British Bake Off or baking show. If you've seen it, I think it's originally in England, but it's on Netflix. And we're the hosts. There's going to be judges. Annabelle Andrix, who is the executive pastry chef at Rude Food and Pie and known for dramatic snacks. She'll be one of the judges. And then Natalie Blake, who's the executive chef at Spice Hospitality. I think she's in charge of what the calves eat, which is like the cool thing.
Really
she'll be the other judge. But amateur bakers come. The category is pie. So 24 mini pies. Bring and there's going to be a judge's vote and a popular vote, and you can come and participate or just spectate and get to sample the pies and listen to us do this in real life.
In real life. It should be quite a show, but I really just love how they're giving an opportunity for amateur bakers. Like, for the record, amateur only. Like, if you've had classic training, or if you do this for a living, you're not invited. You can come and you can taste it and you can hang out with us, but we want to give an opportunity for the up and coming people who just kind of do this, and maybe give them inspiration to go out there and actually start doing it for real.
Yeah. And I think it's cool how it's very open-ended, 24 mini pies. They suggest maybe using seasonal flavors, using local produce, or just showing your personality. So it's like, who knows what we're going to get? Yeah,
who knows? Maybe you get some kind of opportunity out of that if you're one of the people who want to participate. And if maybe you're just somebody who likes to sample things, this is for you. The entry
be fun.
Yeah, and the entry fee is only like what, $5?
$5, yes.
$5, and that actually goes to the winner. So like everybody's ticket, their the money that they pay to get into the event, that's all going to go to the winner. So that's going to be really cool for them. Yeah.
$5 to sample a bunch of pies too. So yes, November 19th at the Grog Shop. And we will be there. It starts at 8 p.m. Doors at 7 p.m. You can go to the Grog Shop's website to buy your tickets to spectate or apply to participate. And please come see us.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to or watching DineDrinkCLE, the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at DineDrinkCLE, and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at cleveland.com/newsletters.